I will call the meeting to order of the directors of the Moynihan Station Development Corporation for Monday, March 30th, 2015. I'd like to note for the record that this is a meeting that is being webcast. Also would like to note that for the record that the directors have received the relevant materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. Consistent with the policy of our parent corporation, we welcome public comment on the items on our agenda. And after each item is presented and comments are received from the directors, we will allow members of the public to provide comment. All comments should address only the item that is under consideration at the time. Now, before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I also would like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the items on the agenda. If so, I would ask you to please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. We will then be sure that you may recuse yourself from any discussion or vote with regard to such item or items. Does anyone have any potential conflict of interest?
Anita Romero has mentioned that she has a small shareholding in Travelers, and she is not going to be voting in the meeting today. She will join us by telephone at some point in the meeting, but that's the only conflict of interest that we're aware of.
Okay. For identifying that, let me before we get into the first order of business, if you would please, let's go around the table over there and introduce yourselves. Michael, let's start with you.
Yep, Michael Evans, President of the Moynihan Station Development Corporation.
Sarah Feinberg, Acting Administrator at the FRA.
Carrie DeBay, First Deputy Counsel at ESD.
Kathleen Lines, Controller at ESD. Kelly Eustace, Port Authority Engineering Department.
Rick Bartoli, Moynihan Station, Transportation Project Manager.
Richard Dorado, ESD and MSDC Legal Counsel.
Okay, and I'm Victor Mendez from USDOT. Okay, thank you all. So let's go on to the first order of business, and that's the approval of the minutes of the directors' meeting of February 18th, 2015. Any questions, comments, or deletions from these minutes? Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yep.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, I don't hear any opposition. The motion passes. Michael, now you will present the President's report, and this is for information only, and we will not need to vote on this.
All right, thank you, Victor. Appreciate it. I will jump right in with a description of what's been happening on Phase 1, and I'm going to turn it over to the Port Authority to give a little bit more detail. But the biggest accomplishment since the last meeting was the 5-track outage on the south side of Penn Station, allowing us to get in the demo shield underneath the South Plaza that will allow that work to accelerate over the spring. And it was a closely coordinated outage. It had been scheduled years in advance. And a big thanks to all of the railroads and the project team members for cooperating and making sure that happened. I also, the West End Concourse work is accelerating. I had the pleasure of taking Sarah down there today, and it's really incredible. The mechanical rooms under the stairs have been blocked out. There's mechanical equipment getting put in. The concourse itself has not finishes yet, but mechanical equipment going in, the fixtures for the ceiling being put in, and that work is going well. On the connecting corridor, we have had a tough winter. There have been some delays on the connecting corridor work, and we're working closely with Con Ed to accelerate some of that work that's been holding us back from some of the street work in the connecting corridor, and we're monitoring that situation. The Port Authority is working with the project team on mitigation and recovery plans. I'll let Kelly talk a little bit more in detail about phase one, and then I'll come back to phase two.
All right, thank you, Michael. As Michael said, in mid-March, we installed the southmost demo shield over tracks 1 to 5, which was a huge coordination effort with Amtrak, Skanska, STA, and the entire construction management team. It required a 5-track outage for a full 55-hour weekend, where actually Amtrak had to come in and de-energize and re-energize switches during the weekend. So it was a massive coordination effort that we've been planning for the last 3 years. Huge success, and it's our last major weekend outage. Skanska can now commence with demolition of the South Plaza on the corner of 31st and 8th Avenue to begin the entrance work on the South Plaza. Now that we're working in the South Moat, we are anticipating similar issues to what we encountered in the North Moat, so we are carrying contingency for those issues we might encounter. The south half of the 8th Avenue granite stones have been removed, and they're being refurbished off-site, and they'll be reinstalled in July. Current schedule is still on track to complete the South Plaza 100% by November, and that includes the 31st Street steps, the south half of the 8th Avenue steps, the bollards, and the sidewalk. As Michael said, we've been a little delayed with the Connected Corridor project due to the bad winter and the fire, but we're working through our issues with Con Ed, and we're optimistic that we'll get through that issue. In the meantime, we are developing a schedule recovery plan, and we'll plan to recapture the Connected Corridor schedule for this summer. For Milestone 1, in order for us to meet Milestone 1 on the project, all the steel for the West End Concourse has to be fireproof by mid-June, and we're working closely with Amtrak to complete all this fireproofing by June, and we're fully confident we will meet this contractual milestone. We're also finalizing a list of the remaining work we need to complete the work after Milestone 1, and we're determining how many outages we need after that milestone date. Those activities include painting, finishing utilities, and taking down all the shields we put up on the project.
All right, thank you, Kelly. On phase two, we received the 50% design submissions a week ago last Friday, and the Port Authority Engineering Department is conducting their peer review right now. Amtrak review has also started, and we're working closely with Amtrak Engineering to ensure that that goes smoothly, and our cost estimating is also underway. Once those 3 tasks are concluded and we've incorporated the high-level comments, we will be reaching out and presenting the current designs to the directors, as well as cost estimates and any mitigations or design changes that we may make in order to reduce costs and ensure smooth construction when we move forward with phase 2. That's the President's report at this time. Victor and the other directors, if you have any questions, let me know.
I just have one comment, Michael, to you, Kelly, and the rest of the team. That major outage, the 5-track outage, sounds like you guys handled it really well. So I just wanted to say thanks to all of you. Job well done. So let's keep it on track, so to speak. Okay. I do need to allow for any comments from the public. And by the way, Michael, are there any members of the public there in the room with you? I know we didn't introduce everybody.
I do not see any members of the public, but I will let you know if any come in.
Okay. Okay, since we don't hear from the public, apparently nobody's tuned in, I will ask Michael to continue with the next item on the agenda, a request for the approval of a spending plan for fiscal 2015 to 2016.
Thank you, Victor. The New York State laws require the corporation to adopt spending plans, and for MSDC's purposes, we break that into 3 different plans. One is the operating budget for MSDC, for its staff. The other is the Moynihan Station capital budget, which covers phase 1 and phase 2 capital costs. And the third is the operation and maintenance budget for the Farley building itself. The directors have been presented with the materials in advance, and I'm just going to hit the high points and then answer any questions. On the operating budget, we are holding it close to flat with an only 1% increase. There have been some cost of living, longevity, and performance pay increases that have increased the size of the personal services budget line. But we have been trending down on non-personal services over the last few years, and so those general savings are reflected, keeping the overall operating budget essentially flat, 1% increase. On the Moynihan Station capital budget, the numbers in front of the directors are our projections developed by the construction management team, the Port Authority Engineering Department, Rebecca Pellegrini in my office, as to the spending on the Phase 1 project in the coming year. We also, I'm happy to note, you see a significantly higher design cost number in this budget. That reflects the Phase 2 final design, which is included in this. And going forward, Phase 2 capital costs will be included in this budget. But this is, again, a signal that we're progressing and moving forward. And I just want to make a special note here on this budget that the large number that we're spending, this is the biggest year coming up in terms of construction cost spending. And also to note to the directors that we've actually closed, or in the process of closing out our Tiger grant from the federal government. We have spent all of those funds. That was a huge award. It's what got Phase 1 moving. And I know that it was very important to not just USDOT, but to the White House and to the Congress that we spent that money quickly and put people to work, and we have successfully done that. Last but not least, the Farley building, the 100-year-old building that is a challenge to maintain and operate, but we are looking at about a 10% reduction in the spending plan year over year, and that reflects the conclusion of the water tank project, which the directors will recall was a significant $600,000 project. All of it ended up being done in the last fiscal year and hit our books in the last fiscal year. With that project now concluded, we do not have any other major maintenance projects planned at this time, but we are carrying a $100,000 contingency in the construction line for any unforeseen repairs. Our other items in the Farley building spending plan include the operation and maintenance of the building by the Office of General Services and the engineering firm that they procure, and those costs are increasing just slightly, but that also reflects increased security and fire watch that we've added over the last year as a result of a security review. That covers it. I'm happy to answer any questions in more detail about specific spending plan lines.
So any comments or questions from the directors? Was somebody
pretty
speaking
straightforward,
on?
my friend. I didn't have questions. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Okay. I do have one question, Michael. On the legal cost, you have $300,000. In my personal bank account, that would be a lot of money, but for a project of this size, it just doesn't seem like a lot. Can you explain how we get to $300,000? Why it's not higher than that?
Yes, we have budgeted the legal cost line to reflect what we think we would spend in order to get to a term sheet with our development partners and with our other stakeholders on the major elements of the deal. We expect that it would cost above and beyond this number to paper a deal and to move into closing, but we will adjust the budget line if and when we get to a term sheet in this fiscal year, and we can look towards having the funds for papering the deal. And I had this conversation as well with Anita Romero that in terms of for the budgeting process, it may well be after conversations with Corporation Counsel and Treasury here that the legal costs for papering a deal for going to closing would be incorporated in the overall Phase 2 budget and might not show up in this line too. So that's something that Anita Romero has suggested we look at, and we'll take a look at that. But I think this is a prudent budget for getting us to term sheet, and then we will have to readjust at that point.
Okay, thank you. So following the appropriate protocols, I'm hearing an echo. That was me speaking. No wonder I was confused. Following the protocols, I do need to allow time for any comments from the public.
Did Jacondo have a comment?
No, I said
Hearing
pretty straightforward.
none.
I don't have a question.
Okay. So with that, I will entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes. So Michael, let's move on to the next topic on the agenda. Requesting authorization to procure insurance policies for commercial property and general liability insurance coverage for the James A. Farley Building.
Thank you, Victor. As the directors are aware, every year we have to procure insurance policies for the Farley Building, both the property coverage and the general liability policies. The property coverage is substantial. We are required to carry a $250 million limit per the terms of the mortgage that we have on the building that ESD has. There are not that many carriers willing to underwrite that type of policy. We've seen that in the past. Such a large limit, the location of the building, its age, and its situation right above Penn Station and across from Madison Square Garden. We were notified at the end of the past calendar year that our carrier at the time would not be renewing coverage, and neither would our general liability policy holder. About the same time, Empire State Development was in the midst of a competitive procurement for insurance broker, something that they do every few years. They did select a new broker of record, the Willis Group, who was brought on. We spent some time getting Willis up to speed, and then they went out to the market. I have to say that we've been very pleased with the Willis team, and they came back with some very competitive proposals, policies. In particular, on the property side, they came back with proposals from AIG and from Zurich, both in line with each other in terms of overall cost and in terms of terms, but significantly $100,000 less than our policy from the previous year. Our recommendation, after ESD and MSDC staff reviewed the terms and conferred with Willis, is to go with Zurich, given their role in underwriting the builder's risk policy for Skanska. They have a great familiarity with the project, a lot of comfort with the risk involved, and they understand in particular the distinctions between the building, the construction project, and all of those particulars and the various stakeholders. So our recommendation is to move forward with Zurich. On the general liability side, the policy that we were recommending and that came in with the most competitive quote was Travelers, with an umbrella $25 million from CNA, and then we were recommending an additional $25 million from Liberty Mutual. This would be an additional $25 million than we've typically carried, but the quote for the policy was so low, $23,000, that we think it's prudent to take out this other coverage, given the greater intensity of use of the building over the last few years, in particular the events that we are having in the building, which have been extremely successful from a revenue generation point and from a press perspective, but potentially carry some added risk. And so I think that it's prudent to increase the coverage, and that's the recommendation. Happy to answer any questions, and we also have Willis here and Rose Kevel, who's consulting with ESD on insurance policies and particularly on MSDC insurance coverages, if there are any questions from the directors.
Michael, it's Anita. Just wanted to let you know
Yes?
that it's just joined.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late.
Anita, the shareholding in Travelers was noted on the record at the beginning of the meeting.
So I'm hearing an echo over here, which is a little confusing, so help me out, Michael. Are we still, do directors have comments or thoughts or ideas on this?
I have no questions.
Neither. I'm good.
Nor I.
Okay, so just for my sake, make sure I understand. On On the general liability, you actually added an additional $25 million for a minimal amount, so Michael, I think that's a good move. The actual authorization that you're seeking here is for the $728,000, is that correct? Or $29,000?
Yes.
Okay. So that's what we would be voting on, not just the little block, the summary down here.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, with that clarification, I need to provide opportunity for comment from the public. And hearing none, with that, I will entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, let's vote on that. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. So with that, if there is no other business, I do want to thank all of you for participating, taking the time out of your busy day for participating today. So I will call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved?
So moved.
All right. I'm sure, we have the ayes. Ayes have it, correct?
Yes.
Aye.
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 Project moving,
All
thank
right.
you.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Victor.